Imagine this. It's late summer, 1944. The Allies have broken out from the beaches of Normandy, and General Patton's Third Army is racing across France, a steel juggernaut chewing up miles and pushing the enemy back. But this incredible advance is about to grind to a halt, not from enemy tanks or guns, but from a lack of something far more basic: fuel, ammunition, and food. The armies were moving so fast, they were literally outrunning their supply lines. The French railway system was shattered, the ports were a wreck, and a crisis was looming. How do you fuel a lightning-fast war machine hundreds of miles from its nearest supply depot? The answer was a masterstroke of logistics, a non-stop, 24/7 lifeline powered by gasoline, grit, and incredible human endurance. This is the story of the Red Ball Express, America's highway to victory. So, what exactly was the Red Ball Express? The name itself comes from an old railroad term for prioritized freight. And that's exactly what this was: top priority cargo. On August 25, 1944, just as Paris was being liberated, the Allied command launched this ambitious, unprecedented trucking operation. The plan was audacious: to create a one-way loop of highways dedicated solely to supply trucks. One road for driving to the front, another for the return trip. Civilian traffic was banned. Military police lined the routes. It was a conveyor belt of war, stretching from the Normandy coast all the way to the front lines near Paris and beyond. The scale of this operation is almost impossible to comprehend. At its peak, the Red Ball Express involved nearly 6,000 trucks, delivering over 12,500 tons of supplies every single day. Think about that. Every day, a fleet of vehicles carrying the weight of the Eiffel Tower was roaring towards the front. These weren't just a few trucks here and there. This was a constant, thunderous river of steel. Convoys of at least 5 trucks, led by a jeep in the front and back, were dispatched with military precision. They were marked with a simple red ball painted on the side, a symbol that meant, "Get out of the way, we're coming through." And they came through day and night, in sunshine and pouring rain, turning the French countryside into a humming, roaring artery of the Allied war effort. Now let's talk about the heart and soul of this operation: the drivers. Who were the men behind the wheels of these 2.5-ton trucks, pushing themselves and their machines to the absolute limit? Overwhelmingly, about 75% of them were African American soldiers. At a time when the U.S. military was still segregated, these men were often relegated to service and support roles, far from the glorified image of the frontline infantryman. Many of them had never even driven a truck before being hastily trained and thrown into this high-stakes mission. They were mechanics, cooks, clerks, and quartermasters, reassigned to become the lifeblood of the Allied advance. They were handed a steering wheel and a mission of monumental importance. The challenges they faced were relentless. These were not smooth, modern highways. The roads of France were narrow, often damaged by years of war, and slick with mud and rain. The drivers worked grueling shifts, sometimes driving for over 40 hours straight with little to no sleep, hopped up on coffee and sheer determination. The trucks themselves were constantly breaking down from the strain. Blown tires, engine failures, and broken axles were a daily reality. Mobile ordnance teams worked frantically along the routes, patching up vehicles on the fly to get them back in the race against time. The constant pressure was immense. Every gallon of fuel, every crate of ammunition they carried was desperately needed at the front. A delay could mean the difference between victory and defeat for an entire division. And if the exhaustion and mechanical failures weren't enough, there was the constant danger of the enemy. While the front line was miles ahead, the Red Ball routes were not entirely safe. German aircraft would sometimes strafe the convoys, turning a routine supply run into a fiery inferno. Snipers and small pockets of bypassed enemy troops still posed a threat, especially at night. Imagine driving a truck loaded with high explosives or thousands of gallons of gasoline on a dark, unfamiliar road, knowing that at any moment you could become a target. These drivers weren't just truckers, they were combatants in their own right, facing mortal danger with every mile they drove. They drove with their rifles in the cab and their helmets on their heads, pushing through fear and fatigue. The impact of the Red Ball Express on the war cannot be overstated. It was the critical factor that allowed General George S. Patton's Third Army to continue its legendary armored blitz across France. Patton was famous for his aggressive, fast-moving tactics, but those tactics were entirely dependent on a massive, uninterrupted flow of supplies, especially gasoline. His tanks were thirsty, and the Red Ball drivers were the ones who kept them fed. There's a famous, though perhaps exaggerated, quote attributed to Patton. "My men can eat their belts, but my tanks have got to have gas." It was the Red Ball Express that delivered that gas. Without it, the advance would have stalled, giving the German army precious time to regroup, dig in, and prolong the war, costing countless more lives. This highway of trucks directly enabled one of the most successful campaigns of World War II. The Red Ball Express officially ran for 83 days, from late August to mid-November 1944. By then, the port of Antwerp had been captured and cleared, and the French rail system was slowly being repaired, allowing for more efficient, large-scale supply transport. The emergency was over. The trucks and their heroic drivers had done their job. The operation was phased out, and the men were reassigned. But in those 3 crucial months, they had achieved the impossible. They moved over 412,000 tons of supplies, a testament to their incredible effort. So what is the legacy of the Red Ball Express? It's a story of unsung heroes. The names of the generals and the battles are famous, but the story of the logisticians and the drivers who made it all possible is often overlooked. It's a powerful reminder that wars are not won by bullets alone. They are won with logistics, with planning, and with the relentless, unglamorous work of keeping the front line supplied. It's the ultimate proof of the old military adage, amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. More than that, it's a profound story of courage and dedication, particularly for the African American soldiers who performed this vital task. They fought a war on 2 fronts, one against the enemy in Europe and another against segregation and prejudice within their own army. They proved their patriotism and their indispensable value under the most demanding conditions imaginable. The Red Ball Express was more than just a convoy route. It was a symbol of American ingenuity and industrial might, a demonstration of how to mobilize resources on an epic scale. It was a highway of victory, paved with the sweat, courage, and resilience of thousands of men who understood that their cargo was the key to liberation. The next time you hear about the great battles of World War II, remember the thunderous roar of those 6,000 trucks, driving through the day and through the night, carrying victory one delivery at a time. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories from the past. Let me know in the comments what other unsung heroes of history you'd like to hear about. See you in the next video.